the talking points that you all have mentioned, it reminds me of one thing. Regardless of where we are in life, we cannot forget where we came from. I can easily fall into the rhetoric of what a lot of my coworkers spit out, but I do not, because I know for a fact one thing: those who seek power, there will always be an element somewhere of those who seek to divide. And I say that to say this also: one side of the political aisle is a party always evolving ideas, and the other party opposite of them virtually has no new ideas. So I'm not promoting a particular party per se, as much as I am seeing things for what they are. People can label me the L word, the, libtard or whatever. That's fine, because I will tell them that the dictionary definition of a liberal is an open minded forward thinker. And if they think open minded forward thinkers are tearing this country apart, I'd hate to see what they would be doing to classify themselves as unifying this country. And that's
Right.
that.
Right. And that's just it. It's like if someone could realistically tell me what part of the Republican Party platform is looking to better your life or the average American's life, if you could just point any part of it out, please let me know, because I don't, there isn't, they're not even, Mitch McConnell doesn't, they don't even run on a platform party. It's a
We're
message of hate. It's a message of negative. It's like, okay, well, we're against the wokeness, we're against this, we're against this. It's never
And,
like, okay, well, let's do
I don't
this.
like the term woke. Is I say you're woke when you get out of bed, but you're socially conscious when you open your mind and you actually apply the fact that you have two ears and one mouth. You're supposed to listen more than you talk. So the woke connotation, I can't stand that word, on the simple fact of people misconstrue it, and it further perpetuates the other side to fuel their fire even further. I just
well,
simply get to the point and say you're either socially conscious or you're not.
so that term, from what I understand, was brought about in the 90s to represent, and it was brought about by the Black community to represent social awareness and social
Yeah,
consciousness,
you are
like you
correct.
stated. And just like everything, white people take stuff from Black people and they twist it and it becomes something bad. And we see that with Black Lives Matter has become BLM. And it's the same thing with the terminology woke.
Well, I have, and it's funny you bring that up. I was just sharing this with a good friend of mine the other day. I have a saying that I say: they want our rhythm, but not our blues. You want to be us, but don't want our effing problems. So you twist our AAVE, you emulate our dance, our culture, our music, all of that. So in my interpretation of it is this: you don't get to say Kendrick Kendrick Lamar, John Legend, and 21 Savage are your favorite recording artists when you don't give a damn about what happened to Tamir Rice, or Tatiana Jefferson, George Floyd, or Breonna Taylor. So if you're going to sit your butt down and call yourself eating a plate of soul food, you better be researching our history. What happened in Colfax, Louisiana? What happened in Rosewood? What happened in East St. Louis in 1919, I believe? And what happened in 1921 in Tulsa? You don't get to play trap music at your corporate party, and you don't care about any of that. So again, if you want to acknowledge our rhythm, you better be having interest in our blues.
So, can
So,
I ask you something as far as being whatever you do for a living? Um, how because you mentioned George Floyd and things like that. How has that affected you in your in pursuing your career?
well, by the time that happened, I'd already been on for 15 years. So I will say this. I absolutely see both sides of the equation slash conflict, what have you. I see it from being a public safety professional, and I also see it as being a black male in America. So the public safety professional in me says that our job is to preserve what's in the best interest of humanity and not further exploit it. So I say that to say this. I have not found a reason for a need to be on a man's neck for 9 minutes, 29 seconds. The answer for that is to get the person the help they need and to recognize that they are a viable part of humanity, just like I am. That's number one. And number two, as a man of color in America, I have to realize that everything I do, I have to do it 2 times more thorough, 2 times more deliberate, and I need to double and triple check myself because that's the only way I'm going to remain on even ground with those who do not look like me.
Mr. Legs,
Hopefully,
welcome back.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for coming back.
Yeah, I literally just left for like 5 seconds to check something.
And
Like,
everybody was like, "Get Legs back in here."
welcome back, bud.
yeah. So full disclosure here, about everything that I'm gonna say uh to you and like towards you. I am a police and prison abolitionist. Uh the idea of police and prisons don't seem to help us, especially within the society that we're and within the system that you're in. I have to ask, like, if you understand like the eggshells that you're walking on, how do you, I don't want to say justify, but how do you convince yourself to continuously uphold that system?
Well, that's a good question, and I'm not going to dodge that. I see myself as a a beacon of compassion through fair, impartial, firm, and consistent service. I see myself as a gatekeeper in the sense of you will only receive from me what your actions say you deserve. And if you deserve the worst, it is still my duty to not give you anything of the worst as what society labels. So I'm to give you an example. Um, 15 years ago, my outlook on capital punishment is not the same as it was then, and I'll let you figure that out. Um, and another part of that too is I have to remember that just as if I'm somebody's son, somebody's husband, somebody's dad, everyone I deal with has to get that same, level of respect. Because at the end of the day, regardless of how I feel, that's irrelevant. That's still someone's son, mother, dad, brother, whatever.
They're
If
still a
I go
human
to
being.
exactly, if I unlock my door, go into my home at the end of my shift, and I have a problem answering the question, did I apply the golden rule with everyone that I encounter today? If I have a problem answering yes, I've done a disservice to everyone that I'm representative of.
Right, but again, the question still kind of stands because it's not about you as an individual. Like I get what you're saying. You do your best within the system, but the system, like as you've talked about, is messed up. So going out and doing your job for that system, like even if you personally, as a police officer, goes out and does, let's say, the right thing. If you personally go out as a police officer and does the right thing, the system in itself upholds laws and does things towards people that are unjust in itself. So by you going out within, like, what I'm asking here is, as you are in this system and as you are aware of the things that happen with police, like, and with policing, especially within our country, and the systems of white supremacy that uphold that system, that happen with police, like, and with policing, especially within our country, and the systems of white supremacy that uphold that system, and you being in a position that uh forces you to stand on the side of white supremacy. There's no better way to say that. Like, you being in a position that forces you to stand on the side of white supremacy in order to protect the interest of that white supremacy and the interest of that capital. What justification do you give yourself to uphold that system?
I wouldn't. I don't see it personally as me going about my duties to uphold a system of white supremacy as much as I am just looking to, first of all, protect the person from themselves. Now, granted, I'm there have been many cases where I could have put handcuffs on someone and placed them in jail, but equally as their actions have displayed, as opposed to what our codes and our laws say, I try to use as much discretion as possible to where it's not said that, oh, all he wants to do is put people in jail and throw them in handcuffs and slam them up on the cars and convict them and take them away from their family for the rest of their life. No, that's not my job. That's not my intent. And that's not a mindset that I carry. Now, however, among that, when people see me in uniform as a person of color, it can equally be something of a role model and something of what is labeled as a token. So I try to toe that line very, very carefully because I just want to be as equally representative of how I go about my duties as I am the person that I think everyone should be, by trying to be the best person of myself, being the best person myself. So when you say a system that upholds white supremacy, I get that because the justice system does need overhauling at all levels. I agree with you there. And however, just as much as I've put a person in jail, I've also, in many cases, have checked up on them. I arrested a kid 10 years ago, and he told me, he looked me in the eye and said, "This is only the beginning of my story. Within 10 years, you remember me. I will own a business." So guess what? I saw this kid 6 years ago. Guess what? He has his own mobile detailing business. So I wouldn't say that I mentored him as much as I did, kept in touch with his family and, encouraged them to say, hey, just because you went to jail doesn't mean that's the end of your story. Find a way for it to be the beginning of it. So I try I try not to present myself as an authoritative asshat, for lack of better term, as
Yeah.
much as I am a compassionate gatekeeper.
You sound like you're a good person. You sound like you are one of the good guys. And I think if our police were all like you, we would not have any problems.
Well, I try, and thank you very much. And I also say this too. There are a lot of us that have a mindset as it relates to how we were raised, how we view others, how we classify others, how we categorize others. We bring that into this profession, and a lot of times you see the negativity, you see the brutality, you see the misconduct. And I bring that up to say this: when it's all said and done, no amount of training or recertifications will change what's in a person's heart. A person has to cross examine himself or herself and decide if they're going to be a better beacon of compassion for the greater good of society. If they're not willing to do that, we keep continuing to get what we get.
Some people in the comments have asked, would you ever arrest or turn in a police officer that you knew was breaking the law?
That's already happened.
Yeah.
It's already happened.
You turn
Without
in or you
going into extreme detail, um, let's just say that a certain age group of society was victimized that was really defenseless, and I just couldn't. I just couldn't. Um, and that officer resigned before, getting the brunt of the punishment. Um, and eventually, there was a plea deal and all that later on. But to answer your question, I've already have. And I hope that I'm never in a position to do it again because it wasn't fun.
And what did you suffer any sort of retaliation or anything for that?
Surprisingly, I did not. Surprisingly, I did not. Everyone that knew about what happened was very, very supportive because there's just certain violations in life you just can't defend. And if it involves the elderly, kids, and the special needs handicap, you just can't defend that. And I'll just say that it involved one of those four groups. So with that, no one retaliated, no one threatened me. A lot of people thanked me, um, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
So like I say, I know it's kind of bizarre that y'all probably didn't expect any one of my occupation to be on here, but
No, you
it,
are actually the second one that I've had in my life. And he also surprised me because we were all in here like, ACAB, ah! And then he left and I was like, I like him.
well,
He's really
and
nice.
the longer I've gotten tenured in my career, I've also learned to understand that people don't get to a position of opinion about something for no reason at all. Um, and I'll give you an example. When all the riots and things were occurring after, the George Floyd protests, I did a very lengthy post on one of my social media platforms. I said, disclaimer: I don't condone any violence, um, destruction of property, or anything of that sort. But however, you have to remind yourself of a concept that Sir Thomas More said in the 1600s. He said, if you suffer your people to be ill educated and ill equipped only to dispose from them what they know best, who are they not to show a final resort to frustration by doing what they do. That's the summary of what Sir Thomas More said. So what I interpreted from that is people did not get to a place of despotism overnight. A series of events boil over, boil over, boil over. And when you do not hear the concerns of the people have their way of getting society's attention. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not cheering it on or anything like that. But if we do not hear what groups of people say, on top of trying to indoctrinate people by keeping them ignorant and watering down our education system, you're suffering people to be ill educated. You're taking away jobs that, vocational programs in public schools that can, help end poverty and build society up as a whole. When you take all of those things away, what are people left to do? So that's, again, this is just part of my way of saying I see both sides of the aisle. And in seeing both sides, you learn to further humanize yourself, regardless of what your occupation is.
Are you going to run for sheriff?
Well, I do have aspirations of running for city council in my town. It's a,
I like that.
I live in a conservative rural community that is slowly becoming left-leaning progressive.
Ooh.
And the left-leaning progressives there were professionals, were college-educated people. We do not fit the negative stereotypes of what society in America deems people of color as being. So that's my aspiration. There's gonna be a movement, I think, throughout much of the neighboring counties throughout a lot of our larger populated states, where